Good morning. This morning at approximately 3:47 a.m., one of our patrol officers was driving in the 2800 block of 13th Avenue South when he realized that there was a vehicle behind him that was tailgating him very closely. The officer pulled into a lot in the 1300 block of Page Drive to see if the individual was attempting to request assistance, at which time the driver of the auto aggressively exited the auto and approached the squad, actually attempted to prevent the officer from exiting his car. There was a brief confrontation there, during which the individual indicated to the officer that he was going to retrieve a gun and come back, and went to his vehicle. At that point, instead of returning the officer as he was calling for assistance, the suspect entered his vehicle and fled. The officer pursued him to the 2700 block of Villa Drive, where the suspect vehicle stopped in a driveway behind a garage. The officer continued to give verbal commands, which the suspect ignored. Shortly after this, the officer heard a gunshot emanating from inside the vehicle. After that, he could see that the suspect was covering up the windows of the vehicle with a large amount of cardboard and different debris that was already inside the vehicle. At this point, additional officers were arriving and a perimeter was set up in order to attempt to take this individual into custody. Our Red River SWAT team was activated, along with members of the Crisis Negotiation Unit and the drone team, and a full deployment was implemented. The vehicle, still being mobile, required a large perimeter to be set up, so a lot of our community members were surprised by the large police presence, both internally where that initial suspect vehicle was parked, but externally so that we could account for the situation in the event the suspect got back into the car and tried to flee or fled on foot. So it was a very precarious and dangerous situation for some time. Many of our officers were out on foot at various positions to ensure public safety and to prevent escape and additional harm to the suspect. As the situation unfolded, again, this individual failed to respond in any fashion. We didn't have any idea whether or not he had potentially shot himself or if he was just lying in wait for our officers to approach the vehicle. But based on the movement observed by the officers after the initial shot, we knew that either could be possible. As our SWAT team was prepared to deploy, we utilized a couple of different tools. One, a rook, which is basically a forklift type device that's on tracks to lift the vehicle off the ground to prevent its ability to go mobile. Again, during this whole time, we were trying to provide, or we did provide, verbal commands attempting to gain a response from the suspect in the vehicle, and none was received. All the officers could see was a large amount of debris that had been stockpiled up into the passenger and front driver area of the vehicle. As we attempted different tactical options to get into the vehicle, breaking into the windows, attempting to again engage this individual, and using different tools to move the debris to see if he was in fact in that passenger compartment in any fashion, we were able to determine that he wasn't, and the only spot left in the vehicle was the trunk. It's a Toyota Corolla vehicle. This individual is a relatively small person, 5 foot, 130 pounds. So again, it was evident that he had secreted himself in the trunk, again knowing that he's armed and unknown if he was injured. We attempted additional tactical approaches, and we used the rook tool to pop the back of the trunk. As the forklift lifted up the back of the trunk, the suspect's hands popped out, and he was taken into custody without incident. That was at 8:03 a.m. this morning, so this played out for a significant period of time when we tried a number of options to safely resolve it and take him into custody. The suspect, 29-year-old Horace man, did not appear to have any gunshot wounds. Of course, he was very cold. He's been taken for medical treatment. He's been placed in custody for terrorizing, preventing arrest, and other charges that may come to light as we get the rest of the details about the incident. We'd like to thank all of our partners that helped us out on this. The Red River SWAT team, of course, made up a variety of officers from across the metro region. Cass County Sheriff, North Dakota Highway Patrol, Moorhead PD, Fargo Fire, and FM Ambulance were all on scene to fill their various roles. And at this point, we are continuing the investigation. That's all I have at this point. Questions?
Chief, do you know the shot that you heard? I know you don't know exactly, but did you determine if it just fired inside the car, if there was a bullet hole or anything like that?
Yeah, we don't know at this point, so the auto is going to be searched from an evidence perspective. We don't know if he shot out the window, if he shot from inside the car. That's unknown at this point. I guess I would mention, though, that I think our officers in this instance demonstrated excellent restraint, excellent guardianship while maintaining their own safety throughout the course of this incident. This was several hours of work by a lot of officers in a very cold environment. This individual was obviously very committed to staying secreted in that vehicle to the very bitter end. And this could have turned out much differently, but for the very professional and I think appropriate manner in which they executed their tactics.
Just a couple of clarification questions. So the officer pulled off initially, and the suspect followed him into that parking lot, and that's when the initial encounter was?
The initial information that we know was that the vehicle was tailgating the officer while he was driving, so the officer pulled into a parking lot to try and to see what the situation was. Before he could even get out of his car, this individual had jumped out and at some point was actually trying to prevent the officer from exiting his vehicle. So we have to get the rest of those details yet, but there was some type of altercation there. And from that, then the individual indicated that he was going to retrieve a gun. When he got in his car, he fled from the scene.